Ron had worked with clients who had cerebral palsy before, but Will was special to him. Will was bright, witty, and determined, yet years of physical challenges and constant therapy sessions had left him tired, emotionally as much as physically. One day after an especially long session, Will admitted quietly, "Sometimes I just wish I didn't have to be strong all the time. I wish I could just let go." Ron nodded, listening carefully. "It's okay to want that, Will. Everyone needs a place where they don't have to be the strong one. What would that look like for you?" Will hesitated, then explained he had read online about adults who found comfort in role-playing as littles, embracing softness, safety, and care, instead of always battling for independence. He wasn't sure if it was silly, but the idea had stuck with him. Ron thought about it. As a caregiver, his role wasn't just physical therapy, it was emotional well-being too. "If this helps you feel safe," he said gently, "we can explore it in a therapeutic way. No judgment, just comfort." They began slowly. Ron set up a quiet space in Will's home, soft blankets, stuffed animals, a gentle lamp instead of the harsh overhead lights. When Will wanted to regress, Ron would guide him into that space. Will could cuddle a plush toy, listen to bedtime stories, or color in a book, while Ron stayed nearby, providing reassurance. There was no pressure. No shame. Just acceptance. Over time, Will opened up more. He laughed more easily, relaxed more fully, and found new ways to manage the stress that came with his condition. The ABDL dynamic wasn't about losing dignity, it was about gaining freedom. Freedom to rest. Freedom to be cared for. Ron saw the change clearly one evening. After tucking a blanket around Will and reading aloud a silly story, he noticed his client's eyes glisten with peace instead of strain. "Thank you," Will whispered, "for letting me be me." Ron smiled. "Always, buddy. You're safe here." And for the first time in years, Will truly believed it. Part 1, Gentle Beginnings. Ron always believed therapy was more than stretching muscles or practicing mobility. It was about giving his clients hope, comfort, and dignity. Since Will had confessed his interest in ABDL as a therapeutic outlet, Ron took time to plan carefully. During a session, instead of jumping straight into exercises, Ron introduced a small ritual. "Before we start today, let's take 5 minutes in your comfort space," he said, placing a soft blanket across Will's lap and handing him his favorite stuffed bear. Will smiled nervously. "Feels a little childish." Ron reassured him, "Childlike doesn't mean weak. It means safe. And that's what we're aiming for, safety before strength." The short break allowed Will to relax deeply before they started his stretches. Surprisingly, his muscles were less tense that day. Part 2, Trust and Structure. Over the next few weeks, Ron began adding more ABDL-inspired elements, always keeping them therapeutic and consent-based. Storytime cooldowns. After a therapy session, Ron read Will a short story, encouraging him to close his eyes and imagine he was a kid again, free from stress. This calmed his breathing and helped with muscle relaxation. Visual cues. Ron added colorful stickers to the exercise chart, just like a child might get a gold star. Will laughed but admitted he loved it. It feels nice to be rewarded, even in a simple way. Routine and comfort. Ron created a structured flow, warm-up therapy exercises, little break cooldown with blankets. This predictability gave Will a sense of security. Part 3, Regression. As healing. One rainy afternoon, Will seemed anxious. His words came out clipped, his movements were stiff. Ron paused the session. "Do you want to go little for a while?" Ron asked softly. Will nodded. Ron helped him onto the padded mat, covered him with a blanket, and set a pacifier beside him, something Will had asked if they could try. With soft music playing, Ron sat nearby, speaking in a gentle tone. "You're safe. You don't have to worry about anything grown-up right now." Will's body softened. His breathing slowed. After 20 minutes, the tension that usually haunted his shoulders was gone. When the session resumed, his movements were smoother, less painful. Part 4, Integration. Over time, ABDL wasn't just an extra part of Will's therapy. It became woven into the sessions as naturally as stretches or resistance bands. Ron saw how regression gave Will permission to release stress, which in turn helped his physical progress. Ron journaled about it afterward. Therapy works best when the client feels whole, not just muscles and bones, but heart and mind too. Will's little space isn't an escape, it's medicine. And for Will, each session became something to look forward to, not only for the physical benefits, but for the emotional safety of being cared for fully. Will's therapy session had just ended, and he was curled up under a soft blanket, clutching his stuffed bear. Ron sat nearby, jotting notes about how relaxed Will's muscles had been after their regression break. The front door creaked open. "Will? I came early to give you a ride," his older brother, Mark, called. Will's eyes widened. He sat up quickly, but Mark had already stepped into the room. His gaze landed on the scene, Will with the blanket, the bear, the soft pacifier on the table. Mark raised an eyebrow. "So, this is why you love PT so much?" Will flushed red. It's not what you think." Ron set his clipboard aside and spoke calmly, keeping his voice steady. "Mark, let me explain. What you're seeing isn't about embarrassment or anything inappropriate. This is a therapeutic method we've been exploring. It helps Will manage stress and muscle tension." Mark crossed his arms, still skeptical. "He looks like a kid." Will took a shaky breath. "That's kind of the point. For once, I don't have to fight. I can just let go." His voice cracked, but the honesty hung in the air. Mark's expression softened, his posture easing. "So this actually helps you?" Ron nodded. "More than you'd expect. Since we introduced these comfort elements, his progress has improved. His body responds better when his mind feels safe." Mark rubbed the back of his neck, looking between them. Finally, he sighed. "Well, I guess if it helps, it helps. I just wasn't ready to see my tough little brother cuddling a teddy." Will gave a sheepish smile. "Maybe tough looks different for me." Mark chuckled, shaking his head. "Yeah, guess so. And if it works, I'm glad you've got someone looking out for you." Ron smiled, sensing the shift. Instead of judgment, there was acceptance. And for Will, that meant freedom, not just to let go in therapy, but to know his brother understood too. Will's heart was racing. Mark's words, "I won't tell Mum or Dad," hung in the air. He wasn't sure what to expect, but the curiosity in Mark's eyes felt genuine, not mocking. "Okay," Will whispered, still holding his bear. "We can talk." Mark smiled gently. "No judging, I promise. I just want to understand." With their parents still out, Mark sat on the couch and patted the space next to him. "Want me to help you get comfortable?" Will hesitated but nodded. He carefully adjusted his blanket and settled back. Mark grabbed a soft pillow and placed it behind Will's back. "There, like that." "Yeah," Will said, a small smile forming. For the first time, he felt like someone was letting him exist fully as himself. Mark tilted his head, studying the little setup. The bear, the blanket, even the coloring book Will had brought down. "So, this is your safe space?" Will nodded. "It helps me relax. When I do PT and push myself, it can be tiring. This is the part where I can just be." Mark leaned back, thoughtful. "I get it. You're not being weird. You're taking care of yourself. That's smart." Will blinked. "Really?" "Really," Mark said firmly. "I want to know what works for you. If this helps, I can sit with you, even talk, while you do it. No judgment, no teasing. Just me trying to understand." Will felt a warmth in his chest. It wasn't just comfort or therapy, it was trust. "Thanks, Mark. That really means a lot." The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. They talked about little things, Will's favorite stories, what made him laugh, how therapy sometimes hurt but sometimes helped. Mark didn't push, he didn't stare. He just sat with Will, supporting him while he relaxed into his little space. By the time their parents got home, Will felt lighter, calmer, and more understood than he had in a long time. And Mark had learned something important too. Caring sometimes means letting someone simply be themselves. The next day, Mum and Dad were home after a long morning out. Mark was in charge of Will for a little while, and he greeted them with a grin. "Mum, Dad, you guys rest. I got Will," he said confidently, like he was stepping into a small but important caretaker role. Mum raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure, Mark?" "Absolutely. He's fine," Mark said. Then, lowering his voice a little, he added, "Okay, so about the diapers. Will said he doesn't need two, but..." Mum laughed softly. "Two? Oh, honey, sometimes he really does like the comfort of both." Mark nodded knowingly. "Yeah. Seems like he does. He just didn't want to admit it." Will, sitting on the couch with his blanket and bear, rolled his eyes at the conversation but couldn't hide the small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Mum, I can manage with one," he said, trying to sound firm but failing to hide how much he actually enjoyed the extra comfort. Mum chuckled, ruffling his hair. Sure. But sometimes it's okay to let yourself have what feels nice." Mark winked at Will. "See? I get it. Two makes sense. No judgment here." Will shook his head, laughing. "You guys are ridiculous. One is fine." But as the day went on, it became clear. The comfort, the security, the little rituals, he loved them. And having Mark there, supportive and non-judgmental, made it even better. Will could finally relax fully, knowing he had both his siblings' understanding and his own safe space. By evening, Mum whispered to Mark quietly, "You're doing a great job helping him feel safe. He really trusts you." Mark just smiled, glancing at Will, who was curled up with both blankets now, looking completely at peace. "Yeah. I know." It was a quiet evening, and Mark noticed Will seemed especially sleepy and relaxed after their usual bedtime routine. Gently, he helped Will get comfortable with a single diaper, just like Will liked. "There, all set," Mark whispered, tucking him in with the blanket and bear. Will mumbled a sleepy thanks and soon drifted off. The next morning, Mum walked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "Mark, you put one on him last night?" she asked, a mixture of surprise and amusement in her voice. Mark shrugged casually. "Yeah, he seemed tired and relaxed. I just helped him feel comfortable." Will, sitting at the table, flushed bright red and tried to hide behind his breakfast. He had been a little stoked, or startled, by the attention but also secretly appreciated the care. "That's why you're wet?" Mum asked, nodding toward Will. Mark grinned. "That's why. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. I'm going to make coffee. You can give your brother a quick shower if you want." Will groaned softly, rolling his eyes but also laughing a little. "You two are ridiculous." Mum smiled and shook her head, grabbing the towel. "Ridiculous, maybe. Helpful, absolutely." Mark winked at Will. "See? No shame. Just comfort. And a little extra care never hurt anyone." Will laughed, finally relaxing into the playful, supportive energy of his family. The morning was a mix of cozy routines, gentle teasing, and shared understanding. For Will, these moments weren't embarrassing. They were moments where he felt seen, safe, and cared for. By the time breakfast was over, the whole situation had turned into just another fun, silly family memory, and Will realized he didn't mind the extra support one bit. Will's PT appointment started early that morning. Mark had stayed to help, as their parents were busy with errands. As they entered the clinic, Ron greeted them warmly. "Rocky." "Morning, Mark," Ron said with his usual smile. "Morning," Mark replied. "Our mum told me to double his diaper. Will. He messes himself so much that I had to shower him earlier. So me, Mum, and Dad agreed to double diaper Will 24/7 now." Will's eyes went wide, a mix of embarrassment and exasperation. Wait, all the time now? He asked incredulously. Mark nodded firmly. Yep. We all agree. You're wearing both now. Will groaned and rolled his eyes. I didn't agree. Mark tilted his head and asked gently, Do you change yourself? Will shook his head. No. That's why, Mark said simply, his tone calm and practical. We just want to make sure you're comfortable, clean, and safe. No shame. No judgment. Just care. Ron nodded in agreement. It's important, Will. The extra protection helps you relax during therapy. Your body responds better when you don't have to worry about accidents. It's about comfort and progress, not control. Will sighed, but, deep down, he felt some relief. He wasn't thrilled about losing a little independence, but he trusted Mark and Ron. And after a few minutes, he realized he could focus on his exercises without the constant worry. During the session, Mark stayed close, quietly supporting him. Every time Will adjusted, Mark reminded him, You're safe. You don't have to worry. Ron reinforced this by celebrating small progress in the exercises, keeping the focus on physical therapy as well as emotional comfort. By the end of the appointment, Will was sweating but smiling. The extra layer wasn't as bad as he feared. And with Mark and Ron there, he knew the routine wasn't about taking control. It was about helping him thrive, safe and cared for. When they got home, Mark immediately sensed something was about to happen. Will trailed behind, looking curious and a little nervous. Sure enough, in the living room sat a new, custom adult-sized crib, complete with a soft mattress, blanket, and even a gentle hospital-style bed feature that could adjust for comfort. Will froze. Wait. What is this? Mum smiled warmly. It's for you, sweetie. We thought this would make things easier and more comfortable for therapy and bedtime. You still get your space, but now it's safe and supportive. Mark glanced at Will. I didn't know about this. You didn't tell Mum and Dad, Will. Will shook his head, cheeks pink. No. I thought I'd wait to see it first. Mark chuckled softly. Well. It's definitely going to be an adjustment. But I guess this is our new setup for bedtime and comfort routines. Looks comfy, at least. Mum laughed. Yes, it's comfy, and safe. And Mark, you can help Will get used to it. No pressure, just gentle support, okay? Mark nodded. Got it. I'll make sure he feels safe and can relax. No rush, no judgment. Will hesitated for a moment, then climbed into the crib with his blanket and bear. The bed adjusted slightly, giving him just enough lift for comfort. I guess it's not so bad, he admitted. Mark sat beside him, patting his shoulder. See? Safe, comfy, and you still get your space. Just a little upgrade for comfort. Will smiled, finally relaxing. Thanks, Mark. And thanks, Mum and Dad. I guess. I like it. Mum nodded, standing back. Good. That's what matters. Comfort, safety, and care. You'll get used to it. For the first time in a while, Will felt a sense of security wash over him, not just from the bed itself, but from the knowledge that his family supported him, respected his boundaries, and cared about his comfort. Mark winked. Don't worry, buddy. I've got you. And just like that, what had felt like a strange, intimidating surprise became a safe, cozy new routine for Will, one he could embrace with trust and confidence. Later that evening, while Will was getting ready for bed in his new crib, the phone rang. It was Ron. Hi, Mum, Ron said warmly. I just wanted to check in. I think Will might benefit from a little extra support at night, especially while he's adjusting to the new routine. Mum nodded, holding an adult-sized pacifier gently in her hands. I thought the same. Just something to help him feel calm and secure. Will, lying under his blanket, peeked up. You mean? This is for me. Yes, honey, Mum said softly, smiling. It's just a tool to help you relax at night. Nothing else. You can use it whenever you want, or not at all. It's your choice. Mark, sitting nearby, added, see? Totally optional. No pressure. Just something to make bedtime easier if you want it. Will hesitated for a moment, then took the pacifier and tested it gently. The familiar shape and soothing feel brought a surprising sense of calm. He sank back into the crib, clutching his bear, and felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Ron spoke again from the phone. Perfect. That's exactly what we want: comfort, calm, and a safe space to relax. You're doing great, Will. Will smiled, finally relaxing fully. Thanks, everyone. I think I like this. Mum set the pacifier down within reach, Mark fluffed his blanket, and Will felt a sense of security that made bedtime feel less like a chore and more like a cozy, supported ritual. For the first time in a long while, he realized that being cared for wasn't embarrassing, it was healing. Later that evening, Dad walked into the living room, glancing at Will curled up in his new crib with his blanket and bear. His expression was serious. Mark, Dad said firmly, I don't like this Ron guy. I mean, Will's regression, he's supposed to be improving, not going backward. The diaper is one thing, but all this other stuff. Mark hesitated, looking between Dad and Will. I get why you're worried. But it's not just about diapers or regression. It's about comfort, reducing stress, and helping Will actually make progress in therapy. Dad crossed his arms. I just don't see how holding him in regression or all these routines help him get stronger. Shouldn't PT be pushing him forward? Mark softened his tone. Dad, I get it. But think about it, if Will's body is tense or anxious all the time, he can't focus on PT. The little comfort routines, the crib, the pacifier, it's not about stopping progress. It's about letting him relax so therapy actually works. Will, sitting up in the crib, peeked at Dad. I know it looks weird, but it actually helps me feel safe. When I'm calm, I can do my exercises better. I'm not giving up, I'm just supported. Dad sighed, running a hand over his face. I guess I don't want him to lose himself in this. I just want what's best. Mark nodded. We all do. And Ron's guidance isn't about making him dependent, it's about helping him use support to grow. Will's still working on his exercises, still improving, this is just extra comfort at home and during PT. Dad looked at Will, who gave him a small, earnest smile. Slowly, his frown softened. All right. But I want to keep a close eye. I need to see that this is helping, not holding him back. Mark gave a reassuring nod. Absolutely. We'll track everything. Safety, comfort, progress, all of it. I promise. Will snuggled back into his blanket, feeling a little lighter. Even if Dad didn't fully understand yet, the support of Mark, Mum, and Ron gave him a sense of security he hadn't felt in a long time. The clinic was quiet that afternoon. Ron had just finished setting up equipment when Will, Mark, and Dad arrived. As the session was about to begin, Dad put a hand on Will's shoulder. Mark, Will, give me a minute with Ron. I need to talk to him alone. Mark nodded, leading Will into the hallway. Inside the room, Dad turned toward Ron, his jaw tight. Ron. Me and my wife are paying you to help our son. But instead, you've turned his mindset back into a baby's. His voice grew sharper. You told us years ago he'd be out of diapers in 2 months. It's been 9 years. 9 years, and we're still changing a 31-year-old's diaper. Do your job. The words cut through the air like a knife. Ron took a slow breath, steadying himself. He didn't meet anger with anger, only calm. Mr. Carter, I hear your frustration. Truly. But I need you to understand, Will's condition isn't something that can be fixed with a timeline. Cerebral palsy doesn't work that way. My job isn't to erase his challenges. It's to give him the best quality of life possible. Dad's fists clenched. And you think pacifiers and cribs are quality of life? You think that's progress? Ron leaned forward, his voice steady. Progress doesn't always look like independence. Sometimes it looks like peace. Will is more relaxed now, less anxious, and more engaged in his therapy. His muscles respond better because he isn't constantly fighting fear or tension. That's not regression, it's adaptation. Dad shook his head, pacing. It feels like you've just made him dependent on being a baby forever. Ron's voice softened. I'm not trying to make him a baby. I'm giving him tools to cope with stress, tools that work for him. You see diapers as a failure. He sees them as freedom, the freedom to live without shame when accidents happen. That's not regression. That's acceptance. For a long moment, Dad said nothing. His breathing was heavy, his face tight with anger, but also with exhaustion. Ron continued quietly, I know you want your son to be strong, independent, free from all this. But strength looks different for Will. He's not broken. He's living his life with the supports that make him safe. That's not giving up. That's surviving and thriving in his own way. Dad rubbed his face with both hands, his voice breaking a little. I wanted more for him. Ron nodded. So do I. And so does Will. But more doesn't mean pretending he's someone he isn't. It means building comfort, joy, and dignity around the challenges he does have. The room fell quiet. For the first time, Dad's anger softened into something closer to grief. Please, Ron said gently, don't measure your son's worth by what he can't do. Measure it by who he is and how far he's come. Mark noticed the tension in his father's shoulders and, after a careless repetition of an exercise, stepped close and whispered, Do you know why I'm mad 24/7? He asked, voice low so Ron wouldn't interrupt. Dad's jaw tightened. He looked away for a moment, then back at Will, who was concentrating hard but occasionally letting his guard down into tiny, honest smiles. When your brother was born and we found out he had CP at 2, Dad began, voice rough, I thought I died at that point in time. Like a piece of me went with that diagnosis. He swallowed, the years of worry and watchfulness packed into a single breath. I wanted to shield him from everything. I thought if I controlled everything, maybe it would change his fate. Mark let that settle between them. The clinic's fluorescent lights felt too bright for the rawness of the moment. Let go for a bit, Dad, Mark said quietly, not condemning but offering a lifeline. You don't have to carry all that alone. We're doing what we can for him. That's not the same as giving up on getting him better. Dad's shoulders loosened a fraction. His eyes brimmed and he looked at Will, not the diagnosis, not the diapers, but his son. Will's breath caught as if he sensed the shift. He glanced up and met his father's gaze. For a heartbeat their usual roles, parent and child, protector and protected, softened into something like equals. Ron paused the session on purpose, giving them the space. He stepped back and kept his voice small and honest. Progress is messy, he said. There are wins that look like steps forward and wins that look like being kinder to yourself. Both matter. Dad's voice cracked when he answered. I don't want him to be stuck. I don't want him to feel small because of me. I'm trying, I really am. I just didn't know how to do it right. Mark put a hand on Dad's arm. Nobody had the map for this. We're making it up as we go. But Will's still Will, funny, stubborn, alive. That's the part that matters. Will, feeling the tension ease, gave a small, embarrassed grin. Dad, he said softly, I know you want me better. So do I. But I need to rest sometimes. The crib, the pacifier, the extra help, they help me work better during PT. I'm not quitting. His voice was steady, there was honesty in it that needed no translation. Dad nodded slowly, tears finally leaking free. He looked at Ron with a new, wary respect. Show me, he said simply. Show me he's improving. Show me the ways this helps. Ron smiled, relieved and professional. Absolutely. We'll track it. Measurable goals, weekly updates. We'll show you the data and the small wins. You'll see the difference. As the session resumed, the atmosphere had shifted. Dad watched not with the hard eyes of someone trying to control the past, but with the careful attention of someone trying to learn a new way to help. Mark stayed close to Will, squeezing his shoulder and trading quiet jokes to keep the mood light. Will finished his set, breathing easier than he had in months, and for the first time that afternoon Dad allowed himself to exhale. He wheeled a sleek power chair into the therapy room. "All right, Will," he said with a smile, "one more trial run. If this goes smoothly, we can set up an appointment with the wheelchair clinic to customize one for you." Will's eyes widened with excitement. "Really? My own chair? Not just the loaner?" "Really," Ron confirmed, adjusting the armrests. "This is about giving you more independence." Mark leaned over to their dad. "I think this will help him, Dad. He's strong enough in his upper body. It could give him the freedom to move around without always waiting on us." Mum nodded from the corner, hands clasped. "It's not about taking away care, it's about adding choices." Dad hesitated, crossing his arms, his protective instincts still buzzing. But he looked at Will, sitting tall with a hopeful grin, and his resolve softened. "All right," Dad said, voice gruff but kind. "Sure. Let's give you some independence. Show me what you can do." Ron adjusted the controls and handed them to Will. "Ready?" Will nodded, gripping the joystick. With careful concentration, he guided the chair forward. It hummed smoothly across the room. He turned, reversed, and even spun a slow circle, grinning wider with every move. Mark laughed. "Look at you, bro, you're cruising." Will's face lit up in a way Dad hadn't seen in years. "I can go where I want, when I want. I don't have to wait." Dad's throat tightened, but he smiled. "You're right. That's what you deserve." Ron clapped his hands once. "Great job, Will. We'll schedule that appointment with the wheelchair clinic. This is the next step in giving you more independence while still keeping the support you need." For the first time in a long time, everyone in the room felt the same thing, hope. At the wheelchair clinic, the therapist and equipment specialist wheeled out a demo chair and began showing the features. Will looked thrilled, Mark leaned in to ask questions, and Mum quietly wiped her eyes at seeing how different her son's future might look. Dad, though, squinted carefully at the chair. He wasn't smiling yet, he was studying. After a few minutes, he cleared his throat. "Hold on," Dad said, tapping the side. "This doesn't have a leg recline option, does it?" The specialist looked up. "Not on this base model, no. Why do you ask?" Dad folded his arms. "Because his legs swell up sometimes, especially after long days in therapy or if he's sitting too long. He needs to elevate them. If you're talking independence, then he should be able to handle that himself too, not wait on someone else to prop him up." Will blinked, surprised. "Dad. You noticed that?" "Of course I noticed," Dad said, softer this time. "I've been watching your legs since you were 2 years old. If you're getting this chair, it better support all of you, not just your arms." The specialist nodded thoughtfully. "That's a very good point. We can add powered leg recline and tilt-in-space features. That way Will can shift his weight, elevate his legs when he needs, and avoid swelling or pressure injuries. It's more expensive, but it's exactly what you're describing." Ron smiled, jumping in. "This is why I wanted the whole family here. Will knows what feels comfortable, but parents like you notice the little patterns over years. Together, we'll build something that works long-term." Will looked at Dad with new eyes, less frustration, more gratitude. "Thanks, Dad. I didn't even think to ask for that." Dad gave a half-smile, still gruff but gentler. "That's my job, son. To think ahead for you. But I want this chair to mean you don't always have to wait for me to fix things. You deserve to handle some of it yourself." The specialist made notes. "All right then, we'll add power recline and leg elevation. That'll make a big difference in your daily comfort, Will." Will leaned back in the demo chair, closing his eyes for a moment, almost imagining what freedom might finally feel like. The house buzzed with quiet anticipation the morning the delivery truck pulled up. Mark peeked out the window. "It's here," he shouted, grinning. 2 technicians rolled in the brand-new custom power chair, shining and solid. It looked far more sophisticated than the loner Will had practiced in: sleek armrests, a fitted seat, padded supports, and the controls angled perfectly for his reach. Will's eyes grew wide. "That's mine." "Yep," said one of the techs with a smile. "Fully built to your measurements." He tapped the frame. "We've added leg blocks and padded knee supports to help keep your legs in proper alignment. That way you won't slip or cross without meaning to." Will looked down and tested them as they positioned his legs. The blocks held him steady but didn't feel restrictive. "Whoa. I feel locked in, but in a good way. No sliding." "Exactly," the tech said. "Support, not restraint." Mum touched the back of the chair. "And the tray." The tech attached a removable tray table across the armrests. "This gives him space for meals, writing, or even a laptop. It clips on and off easily." Will immediately rested his hands on it, tapping nervously, then smiled. "Feels normal. Like I can do stuff without asking someone to set me up." Mark clapped him on the shoulder. "Bro, that tray's gonna be your command station. Snacks, games, homework, you're set." Ron, who had stopped by for the delivery, crouched to Will's eye level. "How's it feel overall? Comfortable? Secure?" Will shifted the joystick, moving forward a few feet. The chair glided smoothly. He tried turning, then leaned back into the recline feature and lifted his legs. The powered elevation raised his legs slowly, easing the pressure. He let out a breath. "It feels like freedom. Like I'm safe and still me." Dad, standing with arms folded, studied every feature: the blocks, the tray, the controls. Finally, he nodded. "All right. This I can live with. It keeps him safe and gives him independence." Will grinned up at him. "Thanks, Dad, for pushing for the leg thing. You were right, it helps." For the first time in a long while, Dad's smile wasn't strained. "Yeah, well, sometimes I get it right." The family laughed, the tension breaking. And as Will spun his new chair slowly in the living room, tray in place, legs supported, he felt something that had been missing for years: control over his own body, his own space, his own choices. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the kitchen windows. Will rolled in quietly, the hum of his new power chair announcing him before he spoke. Mum turned, surprised. "Will, you're already up?" "Yep," he said proudly, maneuvering to the table. "Didn't need anyone to wheel me in. Just me." Mark grinned from across the table. "Look at you, breakfast on your own terms." Will pulled up smoothly and clipped on his tray. Mum set a plate down, and for the first time in years he didn't need her to adjust cushions or balance food on his lap. He ate slowly, smiling between bites. "Feels different. Like I'm part of the table, not sitting beside it." Later, Mark suggested they go outside. Usually, this meant a long, awkward transfer to his old push chair. Today, Will angled his joystick and zipped through the doorway, his knees supported by the leg blocks. "Wait up," he teased, as Mark jogged alongside him down the ramp. In the yard, Will tilted the chair back to lift his legs. The pressure eased instantly. He sighed in relief. "Before, I'd last 20 minutes out here before my legs hurt. Now I could sit all afternoon." Dad, watching from the porch, nodded quietly. He wasn't a man of easy words, but his eyes softened. That evening, a small test came. Will dropped a pencil while scribbling on his tray. Normally, he'd freeze until someone picked it up. This time, he angled the chair down, used the joystick to pivot perfectly, and gestured to Mark. "Hand it here." Mark tossed it onto the tray. "See? Problem solved." Will leaned back, satisfied. The little frustrations, the waiting, the asking, the feeling stuck, weren't gone. But for the first time, they weren't ruling his day. As the sun set, Mum tucked a blanket across his lap. "How was your first day with the chair?" Will thought for a moment. "I still need help. But I can do more on my own too. And that feels really, really good." Dad put a hand on his shoulder. "That's all we ever wanted for you, son." The hum of the chair filled the quiet living room as Will smiled, surrounded by family, finally feeling like the future could be his to move through, one smooth turn of the joystick at a time. "What you deserve."